feel a very long way
away. Come on in.
You're the future. I'm still here in the present. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this discussion about Entertainment 2050. I am genuinely excited about this panel because it really is. I've been talking about diversity in tech and LGBT rights, whereas there's some negative news, whereas this feels really positive and exciting. And I'm particularly pleased. My name is Jane Martinson from The Guardian, but I'm very pleased to have such an amazing panel. Darnell Strom, an agent at CAA, and has also worked for President Clinton. Michael Yang, an MD, Comcast Ventures, with a specific interest in virtual reality. And Rebecca Glashow, who is the worldwide distribution executive for Awesomeness TV. So I thought, because it's such a diverse panel and obviously such a diverse area, that we would kick things off by talking about the sort of top tips of the panel. So for each of the panelists to say, in one sentence, what they do, what their company does, but then what they think is the one thing that is most exciting in entertainment that is set to dominate our leisure time in the next few decades. So Rebecca, could you kick us off, please?
Sure. So I work at a company called Awesomeness TV. It's an LA-based media company. We're building what we call a next generation media brand, which is targeting Generation Z. So where we saw white space in the market as the television ecosystem ages up, kids spend so much time on social media, there's this thought that they don't love video, are not loyal to brands. So we are building really a content ecosystem for them, both on social platforms, traditional streaming platforms, television, that is a brand that means something to them, that entertains them, and is dedicated to telling their stories wherever they are, versus sort of the closed ecosystem of cable television.
Michael.
Sure. So I'm Michael Yang. I'm a managing director with Comcast Ventures, which is the venture capital affiliate for Comcast Corporation. Comcast Corporation obviously includes Comcast Cable as well as NBC Universal. We invest in a wide array of technology sectors, but relevant for this conversation, we have been investing for years in digital media, in advertising technologies, and then new emerging platforms such as VR and AR.
Thanks.
And I am Darnell Strom, an agent at Creative Artists Agency. CAA is a company that's been around for about 40 plus years, and when we first started, our core business was in film, TV, and music, representing some of the top content creators as well as kind of stars and influencers in the business. I got a little background music. Our business has expanded to all parts of media now, from technology to everything from marketing to licensing, and we're kind of a full service organization that works with some of the biggest stars in the world. And we continue to kind of grow the types of people that we represent as more and more new types of folks become influential in our business.
And how about, what do you think of the sort of the technology, the entertainment that is set to be the most exciting over the next few decades?
It's very interesting because there used to be this big disconnect between Silicon Valley and entertainment in Hollywood. And now the two have to work well together, and there's this formation of a new relationship. And the reason why is because all of these platforms, all of these new platforms need content. And we represent the best content makers in the world. So as we think about what the new platforms are going to be and what the future of content is going to be, we know that it's going to come from creative, amazing people, potentially one day amazing creative robots, so we'll represent the robots. But we want to be in the business of representing kind of the biggest stars in that world, and that's kind of enhanced as these platforms have moved on the more technological side. That's kind of enhanced our relationship with the tech industry, and that's only going to continue to increase.
Can you each talk about, because one of the things we talk a lot about mobile, about different multi-platforms, and ways of just the talent reaching the consumer, but 80% of the world's population still have a television set. Rebecca, you worked for Discovery. How do you think TV is going to die? If so, how soon? How do you sort of see the consumption of that sort of entertainment?
I'm not going to talk about the death of TV. I think it's the proliferation of video is the way I'd like to think about it. Is, when I talk about our brand and what we do is the new audience is just the level of control over that experience they're used to having. When you have a whole generation who both knows how to create and consume, and they feel a direct link to their audience, they can give feedback on what they're watching, they can give feedback to the creators. When you have this platforms that are more informed about what people care about, it's just a shift to me, ultimately. TV plays a role, live TV, news, I think will play a role for a long time to come. It's a question of when you go to put on a screen, what screen you're going to and what experience you want to have. And when I talk about building a next generation media brand, we are on every platform. We deliver TV shows to networks and to streaming platforms as well as to YouTube. For us, it's about building a brand that's everywhere. So if you take my former life, it's a closed ecosystem. It's a linear network. Everybody gets the same thing. You have to pay to get in there. That network doesn't know what people are watching. They don't really know who their audience is. It's a bunch of people making decisions on their behalf, right? That was the way the TV business works and still works. And there will always be, to some level, tastemakers and and true creatives. But the democratization of the platforms and the ability for a lot of the tech companies to get into the video space where they really know what their consumers want, they can super serve that, the audience knows what they like and can be targeted at a more niche level. To me, it's just about the video experiences being different on the various platforms. And I think this audience is going to grow up and expect a lot more personalization and control, and old people like me will be happily programmed to. But I think it's a real shift in this new generation of how they've grown up, which is why we target them so aggressively, is they have grown up with total control with social media over their platform. They're not looking for someone to tell them what to watch or who's important or what talent matters. They're telling us.
Right.
Darnell, your clients, how much do they want to? Is it still, I want the TV show, or do they want just to have that social media engagement? What do you notice? And you were involved in the Millennium Network about sort of young people and the way they engage with talent, with celebrities. How has that changed?
Well, I mean, television is still important. It's still where the advertisers are. There's still big money and business on the TV front. So if you have a hit TV show, it gives you a platform and a presence that then can help lead to other businesses. So that's still important. I think what you're starting to see now, though, with the more traditional celebrities or talent, is that they are embracing digital in a way that they didn't before, whether it's them being a part of digital shows or executive producing them or creating them. I think to Rebecca's point about how young people, the way they consume content, they're telling us who the star is or what it is that they want to see. So we're actually taking cues from them. And if you would have talked to me 10 years ago and asked if CA would represent some the young talent who were making videos on YouTube, I would say no way. Now we have a very robust business of working with digital influencers and not only helping them continue to grow their business on their platforms, but then also thinking of them as a brand in its own right, and how do you create a business based off of what it is that you've done. So I still think that TV and movies are important. They do give you there's a cachet that comes with those things, but we're seeing aggressively the digital space is becoming more and more relevant and important.
Michael, that feeds directly into in terms of your investing.
Sure, but I would say think of what you've just heard as the following, which is TV and film are formats of content creation, and they're also business models or monetization models. And the fact of the matter with content creation, video in particular, you've never had more creators come into the market in the history of video. You've also never had more distribution outlets ever available for these creators since the beginning of video enablement. So, the pipe is fuller at the front end as well as the back end. The difference is that certain folks are used to certain formats and therefore certain economics. And when those formats or those economics don't apply to some of these newer mediums, then that's where it gets more interesting, and that's where new innovators have the opportunity to participate. So YouTube stars, Instagram stars, Twitter, Vine, all these new social environments. If you have a camera today, you are a creator in this new world, and there is an opportunity for you to basically be in business for yourself.
So just to sum up though, if we're thinking about this future 2050 or 2 decades time, you all think there will be a place for sort of consumption that isn't just, you know, a YouTube network on a phone. There will be something, whether we call it TV or even bigger cinema, there'll be something that's like a communal sharing of that entertainment. I'm just asking you to look into a crystal ball.
I mean, I think it goes back to there is a place for aggregation and curation, right? As there's proliferation of video and proliferation of experiences, the reality is, you know, and a desire to control that, I do think that Lens and even sort of the SVOD platforms that use data to inform so many decisions, there's still a human factor in that. If you believe in that sort of creative layer, and you believe that someone curating and helping add that layer to the experience, then I think there will always be some level of aggregation, or otherwise it's just every single person can't have their own personalized experience. I mean, or could they? We don't actually know. But it gets too personalized ultimately, and people want to feel part of community. Part of the TV format really working, or the film, is when something works, we all feel connected to it. It makes us feel human. It's religion, right? It's what we all connect with. And so I still think, although you want your personalized experience, there's something community-oriented about video that will always play a role in our lives.
Yeah.
I would just jump in on that and say that you know, I think there will always be content to be consumed, and you know, and there are always going to be creators who are you know, putting that content out. I think how people are taking in that information is going to change and evolve, and but you know, I feel strongly, and basically our business is based on this, is that, you know, people consuming content is always going to be the case. And I know we've been talking about television and film right now, but something that we're very excited about is, you know, the growth right now of like live experiences. You know, you've seen festivals take off, so the Coachellas of the world, and you know, all these major festivals.
The Web Summit.
What's that?
The Web Summit.
The Web Summit, right? There are people who want this in-person experience, but then there are also folks who can't access that. So, you know, I think Snapchat released numbers that I think it was close to 60 million people watched their Snapchat story on Coachella. So you start thinking about, okay, if I'm Coachella, what content experience can we create more so than Snapchat just showing like a 3-minute story about our event that makes people feel immersed into the experience? I think, so that's where the VR and AR side kind of come in, which I think is exciting and interesting, and also on the sports side too. There was, McKinsey did a study on how millennials, they thought that millennials were less interested in sports because the ratings amongst that demographic has fallen, but what they really found out is that there's just an attention span issue. They don't want to watch a full game, you know, so they, like, how do you create an experience where millennials will still consume the sports content, but in a way that, you know, is kind of specific to how they want to consume it, and that can be a virtual reality experience as well. So I think that stuff is really really interesting on how you bring people into the live experience.
I'm really interested in, I mean, virtual reality so far has been disappointing in terms of home sales, hasn't it? Michael, from your perspective, investing in the technology, is that because of a lack of content? Is that because it just hasn't been good enough, or is it something else?
It's probably a variety of different. Reasons. But I think I would start with more the hardware and the communications layer than I would with the content. There is a emerging class of content creators that are VR first. Just like many of you might be mobile first in terms of app development, but we've backed animation studios like Baobab Studios. You know, these are former DreamWorks Animation and Zynga professionals who've switched careers and said, we're only doing VR. And they're the leaders in VR animation and original IP there, such that traditional Hollywood wants to participate in it. Baobab's most recent piece coming up, Rainbow Crow, has John Legend as an executive producer, as a voice talent, and doing an original score or piece of music for it. When's the last time you saw A-list talent like that volunteering and saying, we want to get involved here? And I think it takes new mediums, you know, for your clients to kind of see, like, where else can I participate and make sure I'm ahead of the game? And we very much think VR is one of those things.
Okay, so you're really positive going forward that it's only going to grow.
Yes, and we think there is, like I said, content leaders already emerging. Felix and Paul Studios out of Montreal is another one of our investments. They won an Emmy Award for their piece on President Obama and the White House, you know, in conjunction with Oculus. And they're shooting interesting things. They're doing a piece right now with NASA and the space missions. So, and they've also done original comedy series. Who would have thought you could do comedy in VR, right?
Yeah.
But that's where we're at. Just like people are on YouTube, then they're on Snap, now they're into VR, and who knows what these other mediums are going to be evolving. But content creation is like water. It's going to flow where it's going to flow, and as long as you have a passion and a creative element for it, then you're going to spark to it.
And it can work. You mentioned AI as well, and there's been a lot of talk in the summit so far about AI and the impact it's going to have on, well, not on jobs, on the way we live our lives, but how do you see it? I mean, what are the exciting things that you see in terms of AI and entertainment?
I leave that to you.
Darnell, you mentioned it, so go on, and then Rebecca.
I'll jump in, and I don't know a ton about the AI space. There are probably people in this room way smarter than me on this topic, but you know, I think there are, again, from a content creator's perspective, you know, if you're a writer and you're writing content for a TV show or whatever the platform may be, there's been talk about, we're talking about AI replacing jobs, right? Are you able to create some sort of robotic writer that use algorithms to create a script? And I think they've done that a couple of times, but the script was terrible. But so I think there's a concern, but I don't know if, you know, replacing actual human, you know, understanding context of a situation, emotion, all of those things, that it can be replaced. But I think on the AI front, there are people who are in our industry that are a little bit nervous on the content creation side of where that might lead.
Okay. I mean, AI has replaced journalists already. It's slightly scarily. Rebecca,
well, I mean, I would say I could sort of return to the human element and what we're doing at Awesomeness, which is, here's this population that the traditional TV ecosystem doesn't know how you can reach, and yet they're expressing themselves and they're communicating more so than any generation before. And if you create content and spend time where they are, you will know them. But to me, that is constantly evolving. So when I see about connecting, what we're doing is storytelling, connecting with an audience and developing content for the platforms that on and speaking to them where they are, I have a hard time seeing how AI plays a role in that, but if I could see into the future, to me, it's the human element of that. We're just finally hearing the voices of this audience. It'd be like going back to where we were before, where a couple people are in the room deciding for everybody else. I think we're moving away from that.
okay.
So I would answer it slightly differently by changing the definition or the association of AI. And I think if you think of AI as just a set of horizontal computer science technologies that do a lot of interesting things with math, formula, and data, I think AI is already being applied in entertainment. It could be used in a post-production setting when you're doing things like stitching or photogrammetry and all that kind of stuff. It could also be used in curation, frankly, kind of having a sense of, you know, deep personalization could be ultimately truly automated and enabled that way. And then to the earlier comment, you know, maybe there is a world where you actually have a chatbot or a robot or a fictitious avatar or human virtualization that you want to engage with of, hey, it's Friday night, you know, I need to pick me up, what do you think I should watch? And you can have a conversation that way. I think, you know, back to your original question around television, the time spent watching television, the ratings continue to go up, at least the time spent. And that's because people are multitasking. And while we only have 24 hours in a day, we're very interested in where can you unlock new pockets of time that have never been available for entertainment consumption in the past. And the one we're most interested in is the future of autonomous driving in vehicles, where instead of being focused on a wheel or doing something else, you now can completely be passive and read a newspaper, listen to a podcast, watch a video clip, do something else. that I think is going to be an increased step function on entertainment availability.
Even more time to spend.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, but I did just want to ask you, obviously you worked in politics, and now you're an agent. How many similarities between those two worlds, not just to mention the reality TV president, but do you see increasingly the worlds of sort of, all politicians are becoming celebrities. Everybody wants to become a celebrity, whether it's a CEO or the president.
Yeah, well, the similarities between politics and entertainment are, just from like the business side of things, like entertainment is a very relationship-oriented business. It's, networking, connecting, who do you know? The person who, you were in the mailroom with 10 years ago is now the head of the studio, and you got, so it's very connected like that. Politics is very similar. It's, the relationships, it's connecting with people. So that structure is interesting. I think too that there are some similarities between the, elected officials sometimes and then the talent. But to your point about do politicians want to be celebrities, I think that anyone who has a message or wants to get out some sort of mission or cause or idea, I think they realize, and currently my country has a president who utilizes these formats very well. But it's like, how do you find distribution to get your message out? And media and entertainment are a wonderful way to do that. And so, as we think about our business and who we want to represent, again, traditionally we had been representing movie stars and actors, but now our business is we want to represent any person who is a star, no matter if you're a rock star scientist or if you are a big name politician who's left office but still has things that you want to get accomplished, to Nobel laureates. And how do we then help them access all of these different platforms to be able to get their message out?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that also goes back to the ubiquity of video, right? So back to, it's not a closed ecosystem. So all of these things, I'm a daughter of a scientist, and I always grew up and said, why isn't a scientist more important than a Kardashian? Like, why do we value that more? Well, they had the set, they had they had the promotion, they had the direct access to the audience. At this time, you can be a rock star scientist because you've opened up the platform, because everybody has access to video. Back to your earlier point, there's so many ways to get in front of the audience, and there's so many ways to directly access the true fans, right? Yeah. And so it's opened up. There's this downside of that, obviously, but the positive of that is you really can. I was just on a panel with a pro surfer. My kids surfed. Like, they can access this person and access the talent and be directly inspired by the things they're passionate about, and that is sort of the silver lining, I think.
Yeah. We've spent 25 minutes talking about the future. Can I just, one final really quick thing, which I haven't asked you in advance, but what's the thing right now that's really exciting? It can be like the surf guy, it can be a TV program, it can be an app on your phone. Just each of you give everybody in the audience the one fun, or it could be a person that you love. Yeah. Just the one thing that we can all go out and look up what it is that you love. Darnell, apart from the election result.
I will say a person that I work with that I love, who I think is going to be continue to be extremely influential and is very smart at embracing technology and media as a way to push a message, is Malala, who is obviously a very inspiring person, the youngest Nobel laureate in history, but she is the next generation of what an activist looks like, where it is, how do you connect directly with people to inspire them through story and use media platforms as a way to do it, versus the kind of more traditional sense. Well, she has a nonprofit that does a lot of great work, like building schools and giving girls access to schools. That work is important, but I think changing hearts and minds is the big thing. And she's just someone who I think is, going back to rock stars that we talk about who come out of a different space, she's someone I'm excited about, and I think we'll do cool stuff.
And a first-year university undergraduate student as well. Michael.
So I'm going to name distribution platforms as the thing that I'm most kind of intrigued with. And I would say WeChat, WhatsApp, iMessage. To me, those are the current distribution platforms for everything. News, entertainment, commerce, payments. And I think that is increasingly becoming the connective tissue between everybody and everybody.
And because they're communities that you sort of already know, that you can make your own.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Rebecca?
To me, it's probably being a mother of 3 daughters in this, media environment and empowering them to look on TV and see themselves.
That's a great full circle to my diversity point earlier. So my last thing is just to raise a hand for this great panel: Darnell, Strom, Michael Yang, Rebecca Glashow.
Thank you.
And to you.